Charging has become one of the most important things in the world of EVs, but more importantly, in the world of changing kind of how we're going to do things in our society in the future. We're going to dive into that today here on Tech Path. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to be joined by Mr. Wayne Killen, who is with a company called Electrify America. You might know these guys. Wayne, great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Paul. Good to be with you.
Excellent. Wayne, what do you do over there? That's a long title. Does that mean you're going to bring us more charging stations? Tell me a little about what you're up to.
Yes, in a nutshell, yes. We all are 75 folks working at Electrify America today. I'm number 4 out of that 75. I joined in late 2016. And I have 2 basic jobs at the company. One is called infrastructure planning, which has to do with, we plan in these 30-month cycles. So we look ahead, where are the EVs in market, where are they going to be, what kind of charging power do they require? So I have a team that manages that and prepares these plans, and they get approved, and we essentially start investing. The other half is making sure, because we're in business to help EV adoption succeed. And that's making sure that all the car companies out there, whether they're traditional OEM or new to market, and fleets like Lyft, have a charging network they can use. So we do testing, we provide charging in their vehicles, and it makes for a nice premium customer experience.
You know, we've been covering different variations of charging technologies here on the show. We've seen all kinds of new battery development, and in essence, everything from, robotic charging stations, like we had the CEO of Ampelon. We've had the guys over in Israel talking about fast charging at 5 minutes and under. Let me ask you quickly, I mean, obviously you guys are right there at the precipice of where innovation is happening. Is there any particular or single trend that you're seeing in terms of battery tech that is helping guide your decisions on how you're putting in new charging systems?
Not really, but let me get to something more important first, which is the key thing. Technology is really important, and we'll get in that today. We simply need more charging infrastructure. There is not enough today. And of course, if you're in a Tesla, you're pretty well taken care of. But all other cars in the market, the networks that are out there, there's not enough chargers, or it's lower speed, like 50 kilowatt and below. So that is really our mission. 2 of the main reasons that people avoid electric cars today is, 1, there's not enough infrastructure, and 2, it's not fast enough, which is really more of a reflection of thousands of level 2 chargers out there in the wild, which is great if you have a smaller battery EV or a plug-in hybrid, but with a larger battery, fast charging EV, it's fine for home, it's fine for workplace, but on the go, you need something much faster. So that's really our focal point, is 150 kilowatt up to 350 kilowatts of speed. So it's the most powerful charging in the world today. And that's what our focus is.
I've been to different, I drive a Tesla, but I've been to several different types of charging stations, and using everything from the CHAdeMO to the J, now playing with the I think it's a CSS1 adapter.
CCS.
So there's, CCS1. And I'm seeing all these different functions. One thing that I've noticed with many charging stations is that you're right, there's usually only maybe 2 or 3 bays that have the 150 kilowatts or greater. I have the Model Y, so I can handle the faster amperage. Is that kind of the mission here in terms of taking existing charging stations and increasing the speed or the kilowatt options there? Or is it as you build out new networks or new charging stations?
Yeah, it's really a new investment, because as much as we would love to go out there and convert existing stations, the power requirements are quite considerable. So a typical highway site for us might need more than 2 megawatts of power, which is huge. We bring in our own transformer that would overwhelm a current 2 or 3 charger site with only 50 kilowatts, unless that site were plumbed from the beginning for upgraded power, which the majority are not. So we go in with a fresh approach. We have a list of close to 30 national site host partners. So it's large, biggest box retailers, it's fueling depots, it's restaurants, it's mom and pop businesses, it's Targets, it's B of A's. And basically we've built a network across the country in 42 states, in 29 major metros, And we have highway stations in those 42 states, which includes 2 cross-country routes now too. And significantly, the charging speed, that's one thing to talk 150 to 350 kilowatts. What does that really mean? Well, if you have a suitably equipped car with 350 kilowatt capability, 20 miles of range in a minute of charging. Now that compares to about that same range in an hour of charging on a level 2 home charger.
Yeah, for sure. That would be fantastic to see that kind of charging speed out there. All right, so you said 2 cross-country routes. What is that, I-40 and a northern route, or which ones are you taking?
Yeah, I-10 and 15, and then we got the I-70 with parts of 80 going on the upper part, and we're looking at additional routes too. So, do people take cross-country trips in EVs regularly? No, but the idea that you could is a big part of building confidence, and that you can drive an EV as a primary use vehicle because there's no limitations anymore. In fact, a couple of months ago, we did have a gentleman drive a Porsche Taycan across country in using one of our 2 highway networks across country routes, a little over 46 hours. It was amazing. 3 people in a car, essentially stopping only for, let's say, a bathroom break and food. But that was a record time. And it really, I think, established not only Tesla can you do this now, with the CCS network, you have that ability.
Yeah, and I think and we are seeing kind of an explosion now, especially here this year, of new reveals of different manufacturers. We are seeing a pretty aggressive ramp up to go to EVs within the next 15 years. How is that going to affect your rollout? Obviously, right now, we don't have that kind of density or adoption, but definitely within the next few years, we could be. How quick do you guys feel you're going to be on the ground really being able to adapt to this explosion?
Well, frankly, we're already there. And that was a big part of building the 350 kilowatt maximum speed today, because we knew where the first couple of manufacturers are going. And frankly, there are a lot of others now coming behind because we built this high power network. And that's another reason to stay in close touch with the OEMs. We're always, of course, aware of what they're bringing to market, whether it's a medium voltage 400 volt platform like most cars today, or a high voltage platform such as the Porsche Taycan or the Lucid Air. So our chargers go up to essentially over 800 volts to support both platforms, and they'll go down to 50 kilowatts as well. So they're backwards compatible with anything on the road today. And with some simple switches, we can upgrade the power in these chargers. For example, right now we tap out about 350 amps. We can go up to also 500 amps, which some cars are looking to take advantage of in the near future. So that's a way to get higher power charging without going with a higher voltage platform like 800 volts. Maybe you can stay at around 600 volts. And part of the other thing that makes this happen is some key innovations. We brought liquid cooled cables to the market, the first network to do that. And these liquid cooled cables essentially allow us to deliver that 300 to 500 amps through a very thick wire, which would have been much thicker and harder to handle had we not liquid cooled it.
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of hacks too, especially when you get into the hot, desert regions where people have, put like cooling, almost like an ice pack on top of, especially at the Tesla superchargers. So I understand how that's affecting. Do you guys have any kind of plans to incorporate the Tesla OEM charging device, or is it always going to be pretty much an adapter for the Tesla owners?
Well, right now we were set up to handle non-proprietary EVs in the market. So that's pretty much everyone else. And of course, Teslas can charge on our network using the CHAdeMO coupler with the adapter. Tesla, I believe, is thinking about adapters. They've done one in Europe, and they might bring one to the US. And if that's the case, a Tesla to CCS adapter, that would probably work on our network as well. So that's really our focus. The other thing I should mention, all the rage right now is called plug and charge. The technical standard is ISO 15118. And Tesla has a version like this today. It's more straightforward to do with the vertical ecosystem they have. But we support every car in the business. And to take every CCS car out there, it basically allows you to plug it in and go back to your car, not pull out your smartphone or everything. So there's a certificate exchange between the charger, our backend, and the vehicle, which acknowledges the customer and the account standing on our charger. So it's a real huge innovation step forward. There's 3 car companies now with it, essentially Lucid, Ford with the Mach-E, and Porsche, but we expect many other makes coming behind it. So it's not only easier, it actually quickens the start of a charging session in terms of session recognition.
So it's essentially doing what a supercharger does, identifies the car, your car is already tied to your account, no need for you to deal with, kind of the interface. And probably I would assume that's going to reduce your costs in terms of the devices themselves, because you wouldn't need as much input and device infrastructure there in terms of like CPU power or touchscreen interfaces, all those kind of things that typically you might see in some of these charging units.
Correct. And again, you don't need the app to start a session. You don't need a credit card reader anymore. The more that we can sort of tie the car and the charger to a back end where the account standing is already known, that just makes it that much easier.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the growth of EVs in general. We've seen massive movement by a ton of different companies, obviously many of them going into IPO phase this year, a lot of accelerated. Lucid, of course, is selling out their first model, moving to their second model. We see Ford really active in the space, GM's doing a lot of very interesting things. Obviously, Tesla is the power player in terms of productivity and manufacturing. Where do you feel like you need to be as a network in the next say in 5 years, so 2026, how many charging stations would we see in the US that we would be able to use?
Okay, great question. So right now, by the end of this year, we'll be at about 800 sites with over 3,500 individual DC fast chargers, so 150 to 350 kilowatt. And of course, there are other networks out there that are building aggressively too, and EVgo and ChargePoint and some others. In terms of high power, though, I think we're really the key right now. We want to take that leadership role and suspend it out for many years. So again, back to the planning function, we look 30 months out. We basically estimate what vehicles will be in market in terms of volume and charging power. We have that from OEM conversations. Obviously, they're all under NDA, but we use that to build out the network. So after 3,500, we'll hit 5,000 chargers, and then it's going to keep going. We really can't stop. We're committed to doing what's right. And I would say over the long haul, we would like to hold our title as the largest open and most powerful public network in the United States.
Well, I think you guys are definitely on the track to do it. All right, so we've got this transition occurring, probably that will occur in this decade, where we will see mass adoption into EVs by 2030. We will see the use of fossil fuels and obviously traditional gas vehicles, ICE vehicles, start to really diminish. Many manufacturers have already kind of put it on the chalkboard to hit. With all of these locations out there that are traditional gas stations, these are great retail locations. They're all strategically placed. Is there any plan for any network to really kind of start implementing into these companies as potentially an alternative for the EV market?
Well, yes. I mean, the simple answer is we're already doing some of that, and I think other networks are doing the same. But the nice thing about EV charging and DC fast, in particular in the highway networks, you can start with a different, fresh approach. So if you think about, first of all, you're going to probably be stopped for anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, okay? Mm-hmm. Typical gas station stop, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. You've got a convenience store, you're in and out, maybe a bathroom. So the whole process of slowing things down, if you will, for 15 to 30 minutes gives you a lot more opportunity to think about that retail partner and that site host and the quality of that experience. So whether it's getting a bite to eat with a lot of different choices, whether it's a shopping experience, that's what we're kind of keyed in on. And again, you're going to be doing that probably every few hours anyway. You're going to need a rest break. So the other thing to think about is available real estate. And a lot of the highway gas stations potentially are on the smaller side. We need a larger footprint because we'll typically come in with 4, 6, or 8 chargers just in the parking spaces, and then a separate equipment pad, which will take up almost about the same amount of room. and power availability is another factor. So I think it's a combination between using existing larger footprint refueling centers, but also looking at new options like Walmart, Target, and other retail partners.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're essentially remapping the consumer engagement side of things, because with gas stations, we've spent the last 40 years kind of building retail mechanisms around these things. In many cases, communities, especially on the highways, where you do see everything from refreshments and different kind of services and et cetera, that are really kind of adapting to that fuel station, which is going to be the case in 10 years, where fast food chains, restaurant concepts, things of that nature start to kind of congregate around these new charging centers. So lots of cool stuff going on there. With some of your, and I want to go back to your technology that some of the EVs have implemented now with kind of the smart charging aspect of it, where there's no app required. What percentage of your current chargers are capable of that today?
Oh, all of them. All of the DC fast chargers can do that.
Okay, yeah. All right.
We rolled it out in,
any vehicle that has that tech can pull in today and boom, ready to go.
Well, not exactly. We need to essentially certify that vehicle in our test lab. So there is a certificate exchange. There's some upfront coordination between the car company and us, again, following those standards and how we're going to do things. But that's fairly trivial, but it doesn't mean that a plug-and charge capable vehicle from a car company without the pre-work with Electrify America can simply go out there and charge. But again, that's not anything to worry about. It's similar to testing release that you would do with a car in general. And it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Has that release been done by Tesla, where they are available now on your networks?
In what way?
Where I can pull it, where I don't have to interface with the app, just plug in and go.
No, that wouldn't work, because obviously the Tesla plug is entirely different, and we support CCS and CHAdeMO only right now.
Now, Tesla, there are a few CCS1 adapters on the market right now. We're supposed to be getting one here from a company in China that is trying to roll out here in the US, having a little difficulty with some of the ability. But if that CCS1 adapter were available widespread and or OEM comes out with it from Tesla, at that point, would it be able to engage with the Electrify?
So I see what you're saying. Well, first of all, let's talk about the interop connection between that adapter and our network. That would be fairly straightforward, just testing in our lab, having the engineers compare some notes and plan ahead. That should be pretty easy to do. The plug and charge capability, though, that Tesla does, that is a different standard. It's not ISO 15118. I don't know the details, but there would probably be some coordination required on that, on how to make it work on our network. So there's probably a little more work involved in that.
Interesting. Well, Elon, if you're listening, make sure and let's make this happen. Because I think that would be just an amazing feature set for Electrify America if you guys can kind of go in that direction. Especially, I mean, there's still a lot of Tesla drivers that do feel that some of the superchargers are in odd places and do require a lot more effort when you're on a road trip to, actually participate in one. I want to talk about your Pass Plus membership, 25% off charging for the $4 a month. Is there any plans to move that up to a different kind of like a next tier, a gold, platinum, that you could get unlimited charging for a fee?
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. What we did with this new move called Kilowatt Hour pricing, we debuted that last September. It was very important change for us, because prior times we had dollars per minute states and requirements essentially, which wouldn't allow us to price in kilowatt hours. So we made that changeover. It's a lot more transparent. It's driver preferred. So it's equivalent now to the gasoline model, which you pay for the energy you dispense. It's not time-based. But of course, in the states that don't allow charging companies to easily offer kilowatt pricing, we'll continue with dollars per minute. So I would say we've established a good following with the new pricing. We're going to sort of monitor this for a while, do some customer research, and see what's needed next. I mean, if an unlimited plan is needed, we could look at offering that. The chargers and the back end give us a lot of capability, and We're constantly talking with customers and monitoring social media to see what is the best pricing to put out there, because at the end of the day, you don't want a hindrance to EV adoption be the fuel itself is more expensive than gasoline, and that's why today our electricity is below the equivalent cost of gas.
Yeah, I've seen some of the analysis done by a variety of analysts, and it's getting there fast. So I feel like we, as an entire industry, is definitely got a position now to really go out and compete against the ICE vehicle. Speaking of companies and operators that are kind of moving that direction, Hyundai is now offering 250 kilowatts with one of their vehicles on your network. Any plans for deals with other manufacturers to where you could get free charging when you purchase a certain kind of vehicle?
Oh, yes, there's lots of plans. So we have 11 commercial agreements today, 10 of which have been announced, actually 9. We're working on 3 others that should be clear in the next 1 to 2 quarters. But our plan is to always be a great partner to car companies. Let them worry about the vehicle, the premium customer experience. Let us be your refueling network. That's really the way to go. And the other advantage is that those conversations give us insights into where those car companies need to go technology-wise, whether it's battery size, charging power, or other things that are important to the charging experience. So we're going to keep going, and we're going to enhance the network. You talked about robot charging earlier. We started a relationship with a San Francisco company called Stable a few years ago. It's developed a really neat robot arm, which essentially attached to our charger would in the future allow you to refuel an autonomous vehicle without a driver. So those are things we're working on too, just to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, you definitely got into my question lineup here, which was next, and that is talking about full autonomy, driverless cars. You know, we do see what's happening with Tesla, but there's a lot of other companies that are really advancing in terms of autonomy tech. This could happen in the next 3 years. We could have driverless vehicles here, and that will require, with fleet owners that potentially could roll out in these robotaxi type environments, and the ability, do you feel like there would be Electrify America charging stations on the ground by then that could handle that charging in, say, 3 years?
Potentially, right. I mean, we haven't seen the real need yet. I mean, actually, things were accelerating well before COVID hit, and we had plans with several fleets to begin robot arm charging in downtown San Francisco. So we've put that on pause a little bit, but it'll be back. I think the nice thing about the robot arm charging is it goes beyond autonomous vehicles. So if you think about DC fast charging in the public space on a road trip and it's poor weather or it's raining, you don't want to leave your car. Maybe I'm going to select the robot charging option this time, you know?
No, I think there would be a ton of benefits to that. So innovations in the charging stations themselves, as you build these out across America and we see the kind of the expansion occur, is there any plan to start to implement alternative energy such as wind or solar?
Yes, we're doing solar already at select sites. So on-site generation of solar. We already do battery storage, which makes this a little more grid resilient, but it was primarily installed to help deal with a challenge with utilities called demand charges, where there's an extra premium on the power delivered based on essentially the high power of the car, which is difficult to work with on a business case. You can't pass these charges on to consumers. So we install a battery to sort of peak shave that requirement and keep us below that level. But I could definitely see going more renewable in the future. I think that's going to take us obviously off the charger site itself, where you need grid scale solar or wind or other things. And we do have some ideas. It's early stage, but we are planning some initiatives to bring more renewables to our charging sites.
I like that, because I think that's going to be really a game changer in how we kind of manage our situations with the grid. Speaking of that, grid challenges have hit a lot of very interesting places, including this great state of Texas that pretty much got shut down this last winter. Is there any potential, how would you effectively be able to sustain a network in a grid-challenged state or in an area where we do see some grid problems? What are the kind of the plans to get past that?
Yeah, it is a big one. And obviously, when there are grid challenges, gasoline stations are out as well. So resiliency is something we've thought long and hard about over the years, and battery storage is a starting point. But obviously, the economics of putting battery storage and a rather large battery at every charging site in the event of an outage like in Texas, that's difficult, especially on the economics. We've also looked at generation of power, so natural gas generation. You need to think about the climate change aspects of that, of course, but a natural gas generator, similar to what you see on a lot of data center rooftops, is an option for charging companies too. It all gets back to, again, though, the economics and how often will that asset be used, and do the economics really justify being there. But we're very open-minded to new solutions for resiliency.
So I like first of all, you guys are doing some very innovative things. So congrats to everything you guys are doing there, because it's absolutely amazing. When you look at these charging stations kind of becoming the new community centers for the future, what other applications do you see, coming down the pipe in terms of what might happen at a charging station? Something like a Volta where there's advertising, or other kinds of aspects that a consumer could interface with? I'm always concerned about, is there a place to go to the bathroom and can I get some refreshments, which is a big deal. What are your plans there?
Yeah, so we do have some plans actually starting pretty soon. We're already selecting sites for what we call a mega site, where it would be a very large installation. It could be 15, 20 DC fast chargers in one location at 350 kilowatt, but under a brand new retail concept. And essentially it would be like a lounge. Tesla has done similar things before. You could get a coffee station, maybe there's some recreation involved, but more to the point, it's a place you want to be and relax and just maybe chill for a while. So urban centers are where we're thinking about doing these. In New York, we're actually looking at a property now. And in Southern California and Northern California, we've got 3 sites under investigation that will really, I think, be a place that people want to come to. And of course, for everyone else driving by these mega centers, seeing the activity and all these EVs charging, I think that's going to help build the argument, or, again, persuade folks that they should consider electric vehicles. Because the folks that aren't in them today are convinced there's not enough infrastructure and it's not very fast. But once they see this kind of activity, I think they'll look at it differently.
I think you're right. I mean, the data we're hauling in is that is obviously still, range anxiety is a thing, and the aspect of being able to access, good charging systems within, especially in trips. I mean, I still have debates even with our own team here of just going from South Florida, where we are, to Orlando, and can you do it? I've done it a couple times in my Model Y very conveniently, but it does present a different way of traveling to most people. And I think a lot of people have to really be conscious about, how they're going to take those kinds of steps. Now, Tesla has put in some almost like these battery pack type elements. Have they done this with you, where it's kind of these, if I remember correctly, power pack systems around 60 Electrify America charging locations?
We have worked with Tesla at several of our sites, yes.
Okay. How do those work?
Well, essentially, as we discussed before, when we're in those areas where we want to be mindful of demand charges, we'll bring in the battery pack with the software in it. And essentially, when the powerful vehicle charges at that time, and it might trigger a demand event, the battery unleashes electricity and reduces the amount that we draw from the grid, that local utility. And then, of course, when the vehicles are not there, it will slowly recharge itself and be ready for the next vehicle.
Yeah, so load leveling there to help kind of with that whole approach. I love that. And I think that this is going to be something that we'll see more of, especially as some of these grid areas kind of run into some problems. When you look at, because still home charging is pretty much the predominant area where vehicles are charged, especially for local commute and so forth. What plans do you guys have in terms of home charging units, any kind of programs that you're developing in that area?
Yeah, we set up a new team internally in the company late last year. We launched it a few months ago. It's called simply Electrify Home. And we're debuting a brand new piece of hardware. It's a 9.6 kilowatt unit, respectable power, Wi-Fi enabled. And importantly, it's actually integrated with our charging app. So if you're a member of our public network, a Pass Plus member, for example, you'll be able to go into that app and see your home charging statistics all in that same place. But it goes beyond a charger, and obviously there's a lot of really decent level 2 hardware out there. We wanted to approach it from a fresh design, so we worked with Untitled Design and came up with a nice new modern shape for the charger itself. And then importantly, what do you do about installation? You got a lot of questions probably. We have a centralized site where you can go on, answer a few questions, and have someone come out and do an estimate on what it might cost to put the charger in your garage. And a lot of other helpful information just on available utility incentives and other things that'll make bringing that fueling center into your garage that much easier.
I use a software called OptiWatt, which is tied to FP&L, our local, grid company. And it's pretty effective in terms of giving me the data that I need back of when my car is charging, what my cost of a charge was. Over time, it also helps me in identifying my lowest kilowatt, cost on the grid at that time of day or what time of day, so I can kind of adjust my charging schedule. With something like that, could Electrify America plug into, say, someone like an FP&L or some of these Duke Energy or any of these large electric suppliers and start to implement advantages in terms of the kilowatt usage, but maybe even the kilowatt cost? Are you guys having any plans that direction?
That is on the roadmap for now. I think obviously a big thing is time of use charging overnight. Typically those rates are a lot cheaper. You can either program your car or the charger itself to take advantage of those rates.
I wonder, as we see mass adoption, if kilowatt usage, especially overnight, is going to become a grid problem with the fact that, even my own neighborhood, and we kind of live in a little Tesla community, I feel like there must be 15 Teslas on my street, and they're all charging at night, and they're popping down some pretty heavy kilowatt usage. So I'm just kind of curious when you get to that kind of point, especially in concentrated areas.
That's why I think it's always great when you're tightly coordinated with your local utility when you put that charger in and they can sort of monitor things and see. So the problem is not the grid itself, it's local distribution, the local transformers on your block. And as long as that utility is staying one step ahead and upgrading those transformers to make sure, you should all be able to charge overnight at home because again, that's when power is most available at the grid. And there's not enough consumers of it. So why not make an electric car? And that way during the day when you've got a lot of robust energy, it's going to something other than charging an electric car. Right.
Is there any kind of business model that would be potential for the future for those entrepreneurs who might be watching this? You're looking at fleets that could potentially utilize maybe commercial space, whether they're doing, let's say, food delivery with autonomy, autonomous vehicles in the future. I'm just thinking of, potential business models. It could be even the robo-taxi type stuff that starts to evolve where we could see multiple cars coming into play. Any plans to implement Electrify America into like a business unit to where someone could essentially commission you guys to operate multiple chargers throughout a city or area?
Yes, actually, one step ahead of you. The other new division we set up besides Electrify Home is called Electrify Commercial. Okay. And we built that division last year with a simple idea that while we had our formal public network investment plans, a lot of utilities, government institutions, fleets, small and large, were coming to saying, hey, I need DC fast charging for my behind the fence solution, or I need L2 chargers for this. And those didn't quite fit within our plans. So we set up this new group, Electrify Commercial, and literally they can design turnkey charging solutions, whether it's from site acquisition through deployment of the hardware. And of course, it could feature a lot of the hardware that makes us unique in the marketplace, as well as maintenance and networking of the charger. So So the difference is that's paid for by the site host or the fleet. But again, we've seen a lot of interest in that solution because let's face it, behind the fence charging is really critical, and a lot of utilities are also wanting to get in the charging game, and we love to be their partner, as we already are with Arizona Public Service. We set up a small network for them that we set up and run on their behalf.
Well, I like it in the sense that we could see, it's kind of like these destination chargers that are at hotels or, office complexes, things of that nature that are not necessarily on the traditional grid. I know with Tesla, and in some cases with some, operators, they're just putting in, charging units to help add it as a benefit to, their patrons, which I think could become a big factor. I don't know about office complexes, but definitely around restaurants. That could be a huge area because that's a perfect timing. You're usually in and out within half an hour to an hour at the most. Perfect timing for charging an EV. So this could be a big explosion in those. And they have great real estate and usually large enough lots. So definitely
We have an
interesting options.
interesting example in Illinois. It's called the Firefly Grill. It's a farm-to-table restaurant that we partnered with early on, and they were right where we wanted to be on that highway portion in the state. And we set up a charging site there, and now you've got a really interesting, dining cuisine option. The other interesting option, we call them, they don't conform to our traditional model. They're called moms and pops, although I wouldn't call the National Corvette Museum a mom and pop. In Kentucky, we have a charging site at that location. So, an adventure in our network can really bring you some new, interesting places to stop.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. What is the business model for a commercial operator like that? Are they getting a percentage of the fees? How does that work?
So typically, they're just happy to have charging as an amenity. It brings additional traffic into their stores. So typically, we're able to bring in our equipment, set up the site, and run it at no cost. Sometimes there is a small fee for essentially leasing the parking spaces, but it's not a lot. And I would say the trend is going down because I think more and more site hosts are recognizing that EV charging is really important. And if I don't do it, I'm going to be missing out on an important customer base.
Yeah, I could see that definitely being a benefit. And you're also bringing in a certain level of affluency, great customer base, definitely puts you in an interesting space in terms of just kind of that carbon footprint element of just having a better visual appeal toward what the consumer is looking at you as a business. So I definitely could see that working. All right, so let's look forward. Last question here. I know I'm peppering you with a bunch of questions, but I appreciate the patience, Wayne.
Sure.
Last question here is, as you look forward, the trends are definitely moving in the right direction for EV adoption. Is there anything you see that could really kind of explode? And let me kind of give you an example. In India, you see a lot of the three-wheel type vehicles that kind of explode. There's a lot of different aspects of different companies that are developing these autonomous vehicles for delivery and robotaxi, the three-wheel vehicles like Arcimoto, Aero, the companies like Nuro and even Canoe to a certain extent. That could really put a lot more vehicles on the road. What are your thoughts on how that starts to move down in a society that's a decade away?
Yeah, great question. And I think, first of all, this transformation is already happening. So more and more car companies are bringing EVs to market. And more importantly, they're going to be at great price points with different body styles, all-wheel drive. So I think bringing that price point down, and you've got a wonderful Ford Mach-E that's in market already that we support. So we're already seeing a lot more adoption. We also support EV ride-hail vehicles. So we have a relationship with Lyft, and in Denver, there's a couple of 100 what is called Lyft Express Hyundai Konas that are doing ride-hail service in that market. And the nice part about that, you're replacing an internal combustion vehicle with an electric, of course, but you've got a wonderful education an awareness platform for the passengers in the vehicle to learn about the benefits of going electric. I would say the next big area is probably last mile delivery vehicles, and medium and heavy duty truck are just as important. So we've talked a lot about light duty passenger cars that are retail use today, but I think there are lots of other sectors of the U.S. transportation network that need to go electric. And of course, they'll need their own charging solutions, whether it's a different kind of locale or frankly, all new technology. So heavy duty trucks, for example, will be using a new standard that was developed between the CCS group and Tesla, quite frankly, and it'll start charging power at 1 megawatt, so 1,000 kilowatts, and it'll go up from there. So these are things that are trying to, we're staying ahead of the curve. We're trying to address as many markets as we can, whether it's through our normal business or our commercial line. But there's a lot more need for charging specific solutions for these different use cases coming to market.
Excellent. Wayne Killen with, of course, Electrify America. Thank you so much for stopping in today. Great work. I can't wait to get out there on the open road and use some of your charging stations. It's going to be fun.
Thank you. We'll hope to see you sometime soon at one of our sites.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you guys, of course, are checking in on the podcast, maybe over on Spotify or iTunes. Make sure and leave us a rating over there. That's how we get good feedback from you. If you are here on YouTube, subscribe and make sure and hit the bell. That's another great way for you to get content just like this right there on your YouTube best watch out there. So make sure and stay tuned for more content here from TechPath. And if you have an idea for a show or you want somebody on the show, send us a note to producer@revernetworks.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.